This meeting of Monday, January 25th, 2021 to order. This meeting is being conducted virtually due to health department restrictions on in-person gatherings. And just a reminder, if board members during roll call, if you'll indicate the city or township where you're physically located during this meeting. Ms. Vestergaard, could you take the roll for us?
Mr. Arnold?
Present, Dexter Township.
Ms. Bruderly?
Here, City of Dexter.
Mrs. Greatorex?
Here, Dexter Township.
Mrs. Kangas?
Here, Lodi Township.
Dr. Kipke?
Here, Ann Arbor.
Mr. Lundy?
Here, Sarasota, Florida.
Dr. Shoemaker?
Present, City of Frankfurt. So the first order of business are the approval of our minutes from January 11th, 2021. It may have said 2020 on a previous version of the agenda. So from 2021, would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
Last meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. And as a reminder, thank you for going ahead and stating your name. So as a reminder, when you make a motion or a second, if you'll state your name in case anyone is listening in via phone. So that was a motion by Daryl Kipke and a second by Jennifer Kangas. Any discussion regarding the minutes? Ms. Vestergaard, will you do a roll vote, please?
Mr. Arnold?
Yes. Aye.
Mrs. Bruderly?
Aye.
Mrs. Greatorex?
Aye.
Mrs. Kangas?
Aye.
Dr. Kipke?
Aye.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Dr. Shoemaker?
Aye. So our minutes have been unanimously approved. Next, approval of the agenda. Ms. Vestergaard, I did not check the agenda late this afternoon. Did you add EFD as one of the committee updates on the agenda?
I did.
Okay. So for anyone that had printed off an earlier packet, for our committee updates, we have the Legislative Relations Network, and then number 2 will be the Educational Foundation of Dexter. Would someone like to make a motion?
I, Mara Greatorex, approve the agenda. Or motion to approve, move to approve the agenda.
Great. Is there support?
Brian Arnold, second.
Great. So we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Ms. Vestergaard, will you do a roll vote, please?
Mr. Arnold,
Aye.
Mrs. Bruderly,
Aye.
Mrs. Greatorex?
Aye.
Mrs. Kangas?
Aye.
Dr. Kipke?
Aye.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Dr. Shoemaker?
Aye. So the agenda has been unanimously approved. We have no school presentations this evening, so we will move on to our administrative and board updates. Dr. Timmis.
All right, I'll start with the easy one. There will not be a snow day tomorrow. Been asked at least 10 times just in the last several hours. The forecast doesn't even call for snow days. We'll have a snow day potentially if we ever get a big fluffy snow that kids could actually go out in, enjoy childhood, but that doesn't look like what's happening tomorrow. So we're in. The Mill Creek got up and going today, had kids in the building. It was really nice. Next, the B group's in tomorrow. High school has PSAT testing tomorrow, and then students will be in the building starting Thursday. We are working out all the logistics to, in the other levels, to start talking about how we could increase frequency and still follow all of the guidance and safety requirements to keep kids safe and staff safe. The buses overall, though, one thing we're watching as we roll in the middle school and the high school is the ridership. So we know how many students are on each bus and keep spacing. So we're overall really manageable today. Thursday will be the next kind of, well, we'll see tomorrow will be a different group, but then Thursday we'll see what it looks like when high school and all the grade levels are in. I have 2 items I want to take the screen over to show, and just to catch up the board where we're at, and for new board members just to describe where we've been in terms of strategic planning. So we adopted a plan in 2015 that went through 2020. The intention was to have a strategic plan adopted before the end of 2020. We were right on pace, and then COVID happened. So we were moving along, and I'll show you where we left off and what we're working on from here. Real quick, let me share the screen. So what we've done is we worked through, first we had Knowledge Works come in and surveyed our families, ran focus groups, surveyed our staff, talked to kids. They went through the buildings, went through classrooms, and gave us a really good external assessment of where we are. We then have run several different committees of community members, students. We've done a session or two with the board. We've run it with administrators. We run it with teachers, other support staff, et cetera. Where it broke down to is that the areas we wanted to work on were vision, culture, learning continuum, and extended learning opportunities. And then we want to add in diversity, equity, and inclusion. The initiatives that were identified. So in terms of vision, the challenge we had that we found when we had the external audit is that our vision statement is champion learning, develop, educate, and inspire. The challenge we had is that it didn't have the meaning in terms of what it meant to a teacher, what it meant to a principal, what it meant at a board level, what it meant at a central office level, what it meant at a student level. So what we had to do is try to figure out, and one of the goals is to develop unified, collaborative, and supportive teams. But really what we really want to do is unpack that vision and make it tangible at each level. And so that everyone knows what their role is in achieving that vision. In terms of culture, we know that we want a culture of connectedness. We want to focus on social emotional needs, and we want to build trusting relationships throughout the district. The learning continuum, this is where the vision and some of the action starts to take shape. So what we identified as a strategic initiative is we wanted to transform instructional practices to support SEL, life skill, and content that provide our students with flexible pathways for learning. So the work we've done is when we started developing this strategic initiative, we went out and we worked with our staff, we surveyed families, students, and then we did a round with our alumni of what knowledge, characteristics, and skills our graduates need to be successful. And out of that, we identified these 9 competency areas. And we were able to align them with the vision. So the vision's champion learning, develop, educate, and inspire. Under develop, we aligned that we wanted students to be able to be collaborative. We wanted them to be creative and critical thinkers. And we wanted students to be able to communicate. Under educate, we wanted them to have information literacy. We wanted them to have their content knowledge. And then what really came out, and this was really fascinating, is it came out of the alumni and the parents, was financial literacy. For inspire, overwhelmingly, every group wanted our kids to have kindness and empathy. They wanted them to have personal responsibility and resilience, and they wanted them to demonstrate initiative. So we've taken that a step further, and now that we've kind of created and unpacked this vision a little bit, we started to tie it in with creating what is called a learning continuum. So the learning continuum, we're ahead of schedule. This wasn't supposed to be done until 2022, and we have a draft pretty close. So what we did is we took advantage of a window of when we needed to be creative. When students let out in March and the pandemic first started, we had a lot of our elementary kids do a learner profile challenge as just kind of a family bonding type activity focused on one or more of these competencies. We then, in the summer, we pulled staff together and we did a community feedback session after we developed a draft of the develop and the inspire components were the first 2 we did. Recently, we have had the research and development group build out the educate portions, and we still have to get feedback. So what I'm going to show you is just a draft. We broke this on a 0 to 8 scale. So it's not intended that you would be an 8 all the time. And it's not intended that in order to graduate that you have to be an 8 in everything. You should strive to have that skill, but what we know about kids is they have the concept of jaggedness principle, that sometimes you're stronger in one area, maybe not as strong in another, but you could improve. So we set it up that a 0 is kind of preschool, 1 into 2 is early L, kind of middle school for a 3, 4, 5, and then you get into the high school. So for example, in collaboration, we said that students would demonstrate the ability to communicate with others. Is where it's a starting point. At a graduate level, students would demonstrate the ability to work effectively and implement feedback respectfully with diverse teams. And then we scale it up in between that 0 and 8. We did the same thing for creative and critical thinking, the same thing for communication, etc. Oh, and same thing for information literacy. And then we get into, oh, I skipped over. All right. So then we worked on the educate portion, which is information literacy, content, knowledge, financial literacy. This was really tough. We struggled with how to handle content knowledge and not making it a 900-page document. So conceptually, what we want to do is for information literacy, we actually found, and I probably need to move this down so it's not, I'll move it later. What we found is we could, instead of having, and all of these are unpacked here, let me show you this. So in the information literacy, one area here. When we duration, we had multiple bullet points that outlined it. That's where you see the multiple rows. So for information literacy, oh, we do have multiple rows. I don't know what I clicked in, but we managed to be able to kind of summarize it in a way that made it manageable. So the draft right now is at a starting level, students will demonstrate the ability to identify information needed to investigate a problem with support because they're really young. At a graduate level competency, students will demonstrate the ability to research, evaluate, and generate information to use it critically, ethically, and creatively, which is what we'd want our students that leave to be able to do. Did the same thing for content knowledge. Content knowledge, we need to make it so it can cross-cut across curriculum. So we started low. Students will demonstrate the ability to acquire specified knowledge and skills with significant guidance. And at a graduate level competency, that students would be able to independently acquire and transfer knowledge and skills to novel challenges and predict future implications. Because that's really what we want our kids to be able to do, regardless of subject. But within subjects and cross subject, we want them to be able to do this, transfer their knowledge and skills to new challenges. So what we've done is we've built out this continuum. The next component is to get feedback on the continuum so that we can go and build off of it. In terms of the strategic plan, the only area left that 2 areas to continue working on that I didn't go over were extended learning opportunities. We want learning to extend outside the school walls and really take advantage of our community, and our diversity, equity, and inclusion work. The district-wide committee is almost together. I have a few more spots I'm still filling. They're meeting February 10th and March 10th to start working on that long-range strategic plan to go into this plan. And then we need to internally and with an external group get feedback on the learning continuum and to really hash out, in light of the COVID-19 experience, what changes in what we are planning. This is why the strategic plan is not done. We need some things like the learning continuum we're hammering through. We didn't think we'd be done for 2 more years. So we had a window there that speeds that part up, but it slowed other areas down. So we need to kind of revisit where are the areas we can focus on, what has changed, what new might we want to do, but it really is helping take great shape. In terms of DEI work, we also have commissioned a study of the experiences of our minority students. We should have the results of that study. I have a meeting Thursday with the researcher to see his final draft. make sure the format fits what we're looking for, et cetera. And then we'll be able to report that out sometime, hopefully in early March, of the findings, and then what we can do, what the action steps will be. And that work will inform the DEI committee tremendously, because it was a way to get our students' voices. So what we've done is we've been spending a significant time over the last, well, it was 2 years. It was supposed to be a year of strategic planning, and trying not to stop the work, but it's not finalized, partly because of COVID. Now we need to revise a little bit. Once we can actually now that we have elections over, we have new board members, we're going to need to spend some time as a board at some point to kind of hash through this again. And I wanted to at least get it on an agenda, give you the brief overview, and then we can get digging in it in the next several months so we can get a plan built out. So that's my spiel today. I just needed to get it out there and explain it to everyone. Wasn't meant, there's no test at this point. We're not even scoring on a 0 to 8. It just needed to let you know what we've been working on.
Great, thank you. Sounds like there's been a lot of work been done on both the strategic plan and the learning continuum in spite of COVID, or perhaps because of it. So thank you. Pardon me?
We're trying not to waste a good crisis.
Yeah, there you go. I do not have anything to update, so I'll turn to our student representatives. Anna, would you like to start?
Sure. So the freshman orientation that I mentioned at the last meeting was held last week, and from what I've heard, that went really well. And the freshmen were the first ones to be able to see how the high school looks different. And then hybrid schedule will start Thursday, as Dr. Tim has said. So there will be cohorts of A and B days. And so that will start Thursday and Friday. And then we'll all hopefully be able to see how the school has changed.
Great. Thank you. Aiden.
Yeah, so last time we met, as I mentioned, there was that student administration meeting about how, basically giving feedback about how the school year is going. And I would say the meeting went very well, in that there was another one on Wednesday at 2:30 to discuss the schedule for the future of the high school.
Okay. Was there any preliminary takeaway? Were you on that meeting?
Yeah, so it seemed like a lot of what I've heard previously, people like the Wednesdays as asynchronous, but that it seems to be the people who are really struggling are the ones who take IB and AP classes, which are classes meant for more instruction.
Okay.
Yeah, we meet with parents tomorrow night, high school parents.
Okay. Great. Thank you, both of you. Next, we'll move on to our public participation. There are 2 opportunities in the meeting, so this is the first of those 2 opportunities. Each speaker at this time would be allotted a maximum of 5 minutes for a total of approximately 30 minutes. And so anyone who wishes to address the board at this point, if you could raise your hands, virtual hands, under the participant window on Zoom, and then we will call on you individually and unmute you. I do not see any hands raised. Oh, do you see anyone? So we will move on to our consent agenda. Would someone like to, we have 2 items in the consent agenda. The first is for a special education teacher at Mill Creek. And second is the December budget report. Would someone like to make a motion for both of those items to be approved?
I, Elise Bruderly, move that the Board of Ed approve the consent items in bulk.
Thank you. Is there support?
I, Mara Greater support.
Great. And since it is a consent agenda, we do not have any discussion, so we'll move to the roll vote. Ms. Vestergaard, are you there? I will move to a roll vote. Just in the order that I see you on my screen. So Trustee Bruderly,
Aye.
Trustee Lundy,
Aye.
Trustee Greatorex,
Aye.
Trustee Arnold,
Aye.
Trustee Kipke,
Aye.
and Trustee Kangas.
Aye.
And I, Julie Shoemaker, also support the approval of the consent agenda. So it has been unanimously approved. So we have 4 action items on our agenda this evening. The first are the 2021 taxable refunding of bonds. Dexter Community Schools has an opportunity to refund its school loan revolving fund balance with taxable bonds and take advantage of currently low interest rates on short-term maturities. Our packet includes a memorandum from CFO Sharon Raschke explaining the benefits of doing so. This item was discussed by the Finance Committee at their meeting on September 15th, and it's being presented to the board this evening for consideration. So if someone would like to make the motion, and we'll get it on the table, and then we can ask questions and discuss it.
I, Dick Lundy, move that the Board of Education adopt the attached resolution authorizing issuance of the 2021 refunding bonds.
I, Jennifer Kangas, second.
Thank you.
That information was also sent out to people ahead of the meeting.
Correct. Thank you. Do we have Sharon Raschke on this call?
Yeah, except I'm no longer a co-host. So I can,
And
oh, there she comes. She disappeared. I think Hope clicked it. There we go. There's Sharon.
hi, Sharon. Would you like to give any more elaboration about the refunding of the bonds?
I think this is a great opportunity for the community to save over $1 million. And really where the money is going is to investors. So by doing this refunding, we are able to take advantage of the low interest rate environment that's out there right now. These will be taxable bonds, not tax exempt bonds. So the interest rate's a tad bit higher than for tax exempt bonds. But because we pay pretty much a floor of 3% through the school loan revolving fund, this is a great opportunity, and they'll only be anywhere from 1 to 5 year bonds. So they'll be paid off fairly quickly on the same schedule that we were going to actually start to pay off, to finish paying off school bond loan fund. So this is a great opportunity for us to be $1 million positive on that.
And that's a savings to the taxpayers?
Correct. So we have our debt mills set at 8.5 mils. And as our annual as our annual bond payments start to get more paid off, then that potentially will be reduced. We do that computation. So that will save the taxpayers. It's not next year or the year after, but over the long term, that will save the local taxpayers that $1 million. Now, we do have that second series of bonds we will be issuing in a few years, but that gives us that much more capacity to be able to borrow that money.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I have one, just the nomenclature. I always found it confusing about refunding the bonds. It is another term that could be used for those of us who have home mortgages, refinancing.
Yeah, it's similar. We're basically paying off the old bonds, like the old debt that we have, by issuing new debt. So we're refunding that old debt. But yes, it is similar to you go get a mortgage with a new company. You pay off the old mortgage and you get a new mortgage.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Okay. Ms. Vestergaard, will you take a roll vote, please?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Mr. Arnold,
Aye.
Mrs. Bruderly,
Aye.
Mrs. Greatorex,
Aye.
Mrs. Kangas,
Aye.
Dr. Kipke,
Aye.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Dr. Shoemaker.
Aye. So the action item to refund the bonds has been unanimously approved. Thank you, Dr. Rashke. Next on our agenda is the ratification of the DEA, the Dexter Educational Association Letter of Agreement. In our packet was a letter of agreement that provides for a one-time off-schedule payment to all DEA members. Our salaried employees have committed significant time over and beyond their contractual contract working to provide for the high-quality learning of our students throughout the pandemic school year. And the off-schedule payment recognizes this additional time and equates to just over 1 week of time spent this summer by our salaried employees outside of their contract requirements. And we greatly appreciate that our salaried employees have worked tirelessly to help us prepare, adjust, and continue to adapt to the learning environments required over the past year. And the coronavirus relief funding makes recognizing the additional time spent by our salaried employees possible. Dr. Timmis, would you like to add any elaboration?
This is really it's equivalent to paying our salaried employees for working on their vacation days or their days off. For our hourly employees throughout the district, we have paid them their normal salary or their normal expected salary for the hours they've worked. And if they've worked above, we've paid them above. And we've maintained so that we can help support our staff and have our staff ready. When we've moved out and in and out and in, we've continued to pay our hourly salaried staff. Whether they've had to do their full hours, most of them have come pretty close to it. But this is a way to recognize the extra work of our salaried employees that they spent most of the summer and all the days that they were not contracted to work.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion and then we can have further discussion on the item?
I, Dick Lundy, move that the Board of Education ratify the attached DEA letter of agreement.
I, greater support.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. But I guess we'll give the second tomorrow. Thank you. So any discussion? If you'll just raise your hand and I can call on you. I guess I would like to just add my appreciation, and I know everyone on the board greatly and our parents greatly appreciate the work that our teachers and members of the DEA have done to support our families and our students since last March. It's been very challenging for teachers to have to move and put their curriculum online, and then doing the hybrid teaching is also challenging because you're both doing in person as well as virtual. So thank you very much for everyone's support of our students during this exceptional year. Ms. Vestergaard, could you take a roll vote, please?
Mr. Arnold,
Aye.
Mrs. Bruderly,
Aye.
Mrs. Greatorex,
Aye.
Mrs. Kangas,
Aye.
Dr. Kipke,
Aye.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Dr. Shoemaker.
Aye. So the ratification of the DEA letter of agreement is unanimously approved. Next on the agenda is the ratification of the Dexter Administrators Association letter of agreement. It is essentially a parallel letter to the one for the teachers, but recognizing, again, the significant amount of work that our administrative staff have contributed over the summer and over and beyond their normal working hours. Dr. Timmis, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's the same concept to pay for the time that they would have normally had any vacation time or days off. None of our administrative staff were able to take any time off this summer. We had them working the entire time. We worked over the 2-week break around Christmas and New Year's. We were working on getting ready for the return back. They have worked tirelessly. And it's something to recognize. It won't recognize all the time any of our employees have spent, but it does recognize the additional time and weeks and days spent beyond their contract, which they normally do, but this was way more than we've ever done.
And if my memory serves me correct, last July was when districts were notified of having to put together a continuity of learning plan that needed to be submitted. Was it by August 1st or something like that? And typically July is when our administrators have an opportunity to take some vacation time. So that really impeded.
Significantly.
Yeah. Would someone like to make a motion?
I, Dick Lundy, move that the Board of Education ratify the attached DAA letter of agreement.
Brian, this is your opportunity.
I, Brian Arnold, second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Trustee Bruderly.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking between these two motions, I wanted to note that I feel grateful that our district did receive a significant amount of funds so that we are able to pass sort of the heavy lifting that the teachers and administrators did and able to recognize them in that way. I know the budget conversations last summer were tricky. And so I guess I want to recognize for the community that our district did receive funding that we could put to this use.
Thank you for making that point. Well said. Anyone else? Okay, Ms. Vestergaard, if you could do a roll vote, please.
Mr. Arnold,
Aye.
Mrs. Bruderly,
Aye.
Mrs. Greatorex,
Aye.
Mrs. Kangas,
Aye.
Dr. Kipke,
Aye.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Dr. Shoemaker.
Aye. So the approval of the ratification of the Dexter Administrators Association Letter of Agreement has been unanimously approved. Next, we will move to the approval of training funding for community members on district committees. Currently, several community members are serving on board committees, and it has been suggested that relevant training might be useful to them. And the board could elect to act to approve funds for community members serving on board committees to attend relevant training paid by Dexter Community Schools with the approval of the board president for each training. If someone would like to make a motion, and then we can have further discussion.
I'm happy to move. I, Jennifer Kangas, move that the Board of Education approve funding for the community members of board committees to receive relevant training paid for by DCS, Dexter Community Schools, with the approval of the board president for each training.
I, Elise Bruderly, second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
This is Mara Greatorex. I really like this idea, and I know that it was brought up last meeting during our public participation, and I never thought about it, but it's a great idea, and we actually have reached out to community members before. I know Jennifer and I both went to the behind the scenes Capitol MASB events before we were board members. And I think it's such a great opportunity for community members to really get that education and how to see how the board works and what the specifics are. So I think this is a great opportunity. So I'm really excited for this.
Thank you. I believe Elise Bruderly also went to the behind the scenes, maybe in an earlier year than you may have done that. So any other comments? Trustee Bruderly?
Yeah, I think it's consistent with Dexter's push to have the board members know what they're doing. And I think community members who are serving on committees, I think it's a great way to sort of continue to extend that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one. Ms. Vestergaard, could you do a roll vote, please?
Mr. Arnold,
Aye.
Mrs. Bruderly,
Aye.
Mrs. Greatorex,
Aye.
Mrs. Kangas,
Aye.
Dr. Kipke,
Aye.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Dr. Shoemaker.
Aye. So the action item has been unanimously approved. We have no discussion items planned for this evening. This meeting is going entirely too quickly.
No, it
But
isn't.
no complaints, though. So we are at our second opportunity for public participation. Each speaker is allotted a maximum of 3 minutes for a total of 15 minutes. And if anyone is interested in speaking, if you will raise your virtual hand in the participant window. And I do not see any hands raised. Ms. Vestergaard, do you see anyone?
I do not.
Okay. So we will move on to our legislative committee updates. So the first is the Legislative Relations Network. Trustee Kangas, would you like to give us, you are our new representative for the Washtenaw Association of School Boards, and which hosts the legislative breakfast. If you would like to give us an update.
Sure. We met this morning, and I had to leave a little early just to get Hannah to school. So Mara or Trustee Greater, if I missed anything, please chime in. But we met this morning. It was very well attended. It was an interesting meeting. It is comprised of many representatives throughout Washtenaw County and any elected officials that choose to accept an invitation. And I'm pleased to say that Congresswoman Dingell was there, Representative Tice, Representative Lazinski, Senator Jeff Irwin, Senator Yusuf Rabi, just a myriad of attendees in attendance. There was a good deal of discussion around Congresswoman Dingell spoke about the national COVID strategy and what's happening through there. And Dr. Timmis, if I missed anything, please chime in as well. I know you were very active in this meeting. And just how the federal government is really pushing hard to get the vaccine out, more syringes, swabs, et cetera, alcohol swabs, and recognizing that teachers are on the front line and trying their hardest to have everybody vaccinated. They're also looking at a $1.9 trillion package potentially to fund all of this work, and it would include broadband, increased broadband. So it's a myriad of education-related topics were discussed. There was discussion around certain communities and certain members not trusting a vaccine, and Congresswoman Dingell, she empathized with this. She just shared that she also is afraid of vaccines, that she had a bad reaction at one point, and so she understands the feeling. But it went beyond that, where it was a very interesting conversation, and I can elaborate at another time if anybody's interested. One thing that was upsetting to me to hear was that there is a store of Pfizer vaccinations that are available to Michigan, but that the government has not allowed to be sold to Michigan. So that Congresswoman Dingell talked about that, and that hopefully that will change in the very near future, and those will be released to our state. And if there's anything else of interest. But yes, it was a great meeting, and I'm glad that I was there, and look forward to future meetings.
And I was on that call. I was just one of the phone in because I was driving to an appointment at that time. And so I couldn't actually introduce myself, but I was only part of it for about 45 minutes. I know there was a little bit discussion. It was touching on funding for schools and funding for summer programming. I don't know what, maybe Trustee Greatorex, Dr. Timmis, if you want to talk about what the later discussion was about.
Overall, it was pretty good discussion. They talked about dyslexia bills and needing to get some separate time set aside to really focus. That is a need across the state and the country. In terms of the funding discussions, I'll be honest, it was the least partisan meeting I've ever been at. It was kind of nice. Overall, I mean, it really seemed like you could tell they haven't been in session in Lansing in a while. It'll get ramped up, but there are some things rolling that you could hear if you start to weave between the lines. There's some things with learning loss, and there's going to be a push from some for additional assessments, and there's going to be a push from others for less assessments or different types of assessments. So we'll see how that looks. The funding is going to be really interesting, and I have a feeling they're going to tie that to some of these assessments. It's just my reading the way these things are kind of coming together, but there's a long ways to go.
Trustee Greatorex, do you want to add anything?
No, that was, I think, between Jennifer and Chris, everyone was pretty well represented.
Great. And I was very pleased. Well, I was very pleased that both Dexter was well represented, but our elected officials were there as well. So it was nice to see Senator Tice was there, and I believe was Representative Lazinski there as well.
Yes,
Yep,
she was there as well as Alicia Brabeck, who is a newcomer.
Yes, that was the name I was searching for, and she was excellent. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And then to have Congresswoman go there was very nice as well. So thank you for that. Next, if on a committee update regarding the Educational Foundation of Dexter, Trustee Bruderly, was that at your request?
Mine.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
So I have been going to the EFD board meetings as the liaison for the school board, and it's been quite nice because I served as the E4DS liaison, and it's been a nice merge into EFD, and they've really made a great foundation together so far. They're doing really well. They've had a really successful fundraising, considering that we are in the midst of a pandemic and they really can't have any events. They had Giving Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and then they had a really great showing for their Dread Strong Awards that closed on December 15th. And so Dread Strong Awards honor teachers, and they're nominated and people donate in honor of the teachers, and there will be a screen in each school that will highlight the teachers that were honored by the Dread Strong Awards. So that's coming, that'll be fun. And then they obviously are not having their spring gala that they usually have, but they are working on their teacher grants. Spring 2021 teacher grants are currently open for submissions, and the deadlines for those are at the end of March, so March 31st. So that will be the next thing that they'll be working on. It's been pretty slow. I think usually at this time they're really ramping up for the gala, but it's been good.
Great, thank you. So now we're at an opportunity for board comments. Does anyone wish to share something? Seeing no hands.
I'll share. Sorry.
Okay, Trustee Kangas, go ahead.
I would like to say thank you to everybody who, to all the teachers and staff, and for opening up school again. Hannah started, our 8th grader started back to school today and was super excited to be there. She got all dressed up and, was happy. But I want to recognize, also the trepidation that we all have regarding COVID, and hopefully staff and as many of us as possible soon will receive our vaccination. So thank you for your work, and please everybody mask up and be careful and take care. I also thank you, Dr. Timmons, for sharing the strategic plan. That was really interesting to see. It's an amazing amount of work. You mentioned that there is a DEI group. I would be interested in participating, and I think you said it was February and March in those meetings. If I could just be copied on the meetings, I could possibly attend. I don't have to be, on the board, but it'd be interesting to participate. And then you also mentioned regarding this study that's underway in terms of gathering student voices, and I'm just wondering whether there is any, I'm sorry, Julie, if this isn't the time to say this, but if there's any opportunity for students, if that will be opened up to the public at all, so that if the public would like to participate or give input at all, I was wondering about that. Thank you.
Dr. Timmons, do you want to address any of those? Or you're on mute, right?
Yeah, the study it's actually done by a researcher directly with randomly selected, and then some subgroups where we went with 100%. This is it's a formal study, so he'll have the findings wrapped up, talking to kids. So that won't be something that we set up with public at this point. Maybe that's a follow-up. The DEI committee, we have to sort out some things. We have now 3 board members that want to be a part of it, so we'll have to sort some things out. We could maybe I gotta just think. We'll just talk amongst the 3 of you, figure it out. And then what else was there? There was something else earlier in there. Is that it?
That's it. Just thank you for opening up the schools and recognizing the risk that everybody's in.
Great.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any hands. We'll move on. We have 2 informational items in our packet. One is the board bulletin, which is a summary of the last board meeting. And I would like to recognize Melanie McIntyre's work on that. I think it's provides additional detail, and it's very timely. They usually come out within a few days of a board meeting, so I appreciate that. And then we also have our nice job notes, our monthly nice job notes. So we do not have a closed session for this evening. So that brings us to adjournment. So I would like to adjourn our meeting for this evening. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good.
Bye-bye.